All right, so question number 1 of homework 7 asks us to print 10 random numbers to the screen. So this is a pretty simple program that's using a built-in module called the random module. I think I wrote package here, but it's actually a module. Let's go ahead and fix that. And so notice here what we're doing in line number 5 is we're just importing the random module. And then we have our setup here where we have if the name is main, we're going to run main, and then this main function. And so all we're going to be doing is for I in 0 to 10, so we're going to do this 10 times, we're just going to print a random integer between 0 and 100. And so whenever you do these type of things, you always want to go and check out the documentation that will tell you what functions that this has. So if we go here to the random documentation, you can look at it like docs Python. If you just type in random Python, you should be able to pull something up that looks like this. You'll see it has a bunch of like text here. Not all of this stuff is relevant, which is why sometimes it's useful to look at other people's interpretations of the documentation. But you'll see all of these functions that this random module has. So random uniform, triangular, so on and so on. This is the generator. If we go to random, I'll just do a random. We can do functions for integers, and we have some functions here that will give us what we want. So random will give us a random number between A and B. So let's go ahead and run this. And notice that we're getting a bunch of numbers between 1 and 100. And they're random. So if we run it again, we'll get different numbers. If I run it one more time, we'll get even more different numbers. If I change this to 1,000, notice that our numbers will increase. I mean, now we have a much wider thing here. If I decrease this to 10, we'll notice that we're getting some duplicates here, but it's restricted to 10. And so that's how you use the random module. So question number 2 was asking us to print out the name of all the files in the current folder. So the thing about this program is there are a few ways to do this. And one of the ways is to use, well, there's 2 different modules that we can use to do this. So the first one is the OS, which stands for operating system. And then second one is glob. So we'll use the OS one first. I'm going to comment out the glob version for now, but let's go ahead and use the OS to list all the files out. So we have here in our main function, we're going to do OS lister to get all the files. Now notice I did a dot here. What a dot does is it tells you to go to your current directory. So the current directory that we're in, the current folder that we're in, is what we're going to be looking at. If I change this to another folder, we would notice that it would change it for there. So let's go ahead and run this. And so notice here that we're getting in this path. It doesn't really show up here because it's actually in a folder here, but in this folder, which is all my homework folders that have all of the different homework assignments that we're working with, we have all of these different files associated with it. So now let's try the glob version. Let's see what happens. Go ahead and run it. We notice that we get the same thing. So you're probably asking, well, why is there a splat here and why is there a dot here? And so the short answer is that the dot, when we're using OS, tells us to go in the current directory, and the splat, when we're using glob, tells us to match all of the files in the current directory. Okay, so the long answer is just that these packages have slightly different ways of doing things. So for instance, glob is going to use those that splat to really match any file. And we can still use the dot, with glob. Just do dot slash, tell it go to the current directory and match any file in that current directory. So we run it, notice that even with glob we're getting the same thing here, except we're just putting that dot slash in the front. With lister, we don't need to do that. Let's see what happens if we do it. it doesn't really know what to talk about. So again, the differences between what we have to put inside these functions comes down to the module that you're using, which is why it's really important to look up at the documentation. So that's why I'm telling you there's two different ways to do this, and there are two different packages that kind of do slightly different things, but are able to really achieve the same functionality.